When a cocky karate instructor calls a black woman to the mat, he thinks she's just another beginner. Quiet, unthreatening, and easy to humiliate. But as the class watches, he puts her in a chokehold for fun, never suspecting the strength that simmers beneath her calm. Seconds later, he's the one on the floor, gasping for breath, his screams echoing down the halls. What began as a routine class erupts into scandal, threats, and a citywide reckoning, because this time, the victim is anything but, and she's not backing down. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The autumn sun cast long shadows across the polished granite of James Battle's memorial bench. Lena traced her fingers over the engraved letters one last time before gathering her purse. The dedication ceremony had been small but meaningful, just how James would have wanted it. The St. Charles Recreation Center loomed ahead, its red brick facade familiar from years of community meetings. Lena had spent countless hours here during her career as a civil investigator, but today felt different. Her sensible shoes clicked against the tile floor as she made her way to the front desk. "Aunt Lena!" Simone's voice carried across the lobby. Her niece hurried over, clipboard in hand, her social worker ID badge swinging from her neck. "I'm so glad you came. How was the dedication?" "It was nice," Lena said, smoothing her gray-streaked hair. "Simple. Peaceful." She glanced around the bustling recreation center. "Though I'm not sure about this karate class idea of yours." Simone squeezed her aunt's arm. "You need something for yourself, something active that gets you out of the house. And Sensei Talon's adult class is perfect. It's all about discipline and focus." They approached the registration desk where a young white woman with perfectly straight blonde hair looked up from her computer. "Can I help you?" "Yes," Lena said, standing tall despite the weight of grief that had become her constant companion. "I'd like to register for the Tuesday evening karate class." The woman's smile flickered slightly. "Oh, the advanced beginner class? With Sensei Talon?" "That's right," Simone jumped in. "My aunt used to practice martial arts in college." After filling out forms and handling payment, Lena changed into the workout clothes she'd brought, black yoga pants and a navy t-shirt. The women's locker room was empty, its fluorescent lights humming overhead. The training room was larger than she expected, with mirrors along one wall and worn blue mats covering the floor. Other students filtered in, mostly white men in their 30s and 40s, many already wearing white uniforms with colored belts. A tall, broad-shouldered man in his mid-40s entered the room. His presence commanded immediate attention. Sensei Brian Talon. His white GI was crisp, his black belt perfectly knotted. He carried himself with the unmistakable authority of someone used to being in charge. "New face," he said, approaching Lena with an appraising look. "Welcome to the dojo." "Thank you," Lena replied evenly. "I'm Lena Battle." "Battle?" His eyebrows rose slightly. "Any relation to Simone in youth services?" "My niece?" "Interesting." He nodded, then raised his voice to address the class. "Line up." The students scrambled to form neat rows. Lena found a spot in the back, conscious of the sidelong glances from her classmates. A heavy-set white man to her left cleared his throat. "First time?" he whispered. "Don't worry. Sensei Talon's tough but fair. Best instructor in the county." The class began with warm-ups, jumping jacks, push-ups, and stretches that made Lena's muscles protest. She kept pace, drawing on muscle memory from her college days. The familiar movements felt good, grounding. "Basic blocks," Talon called out. "Show our newcomer how it's done." 20 pairs of arms moved in unison, some more gracefully than others. Lena followed along, noting how Talon's gaze lingered on her form longer than necessary. A younger white woman in front of Lena turned slightly. "Your form's pretty good for a beginner," she said, voice pitched low. Where did you train before? University of Missouri, years ago, Lena replied between movements. Oh, the woman's smile tightened. That's different. The rest of the class passed in a blur of basic techniques and terminology. Lena's body remembered more than she expected, though she noticed Tolland never came over to correct her form like he did with other new students. After class, Lena sat in her car, pulling out the leather-bound journal James had given her last Christmas. She hadn't written in it since his passing 4 months ago. The parking lot lights cast a yellow glow as she opened to a fresh page. First karate class today, she wrote. Body's tired, but mind feels clearer. The movement helps, even if the atmosphere is strange. Something about Sensei Tolland reminds me of the old guard at the police department. That particular kind of authority that demands respect rather than earning it. But maybe that's just my investigator's mind being too suspicious. She paused, pen hovering over the paper. James would want me to give it a fair chance, to find my strength again. And maybe that's what matters most right now. Reconnecting with the person I used to be. Even if the room doesn't feel entirely welcoming. One class at a time. Lena closed the journal and started her car. The rec center's lights were dimming behind her, and the autumn night was settling in. She had taken the first step. Whether it would lead her where she needed to go remained to be seen. The next evening, Lena arrived 15 minutes early, her gym bag slung over her shoulder. The locker room felt colder than yesterday, or maybe it was just her nerves. She changed quickly, smoothing her shirt and checking her reflection. Focus, she whispered to herself. You've faced worse than this. The training room was half full when she entered. A few students from yesterday nodded in her direction, though none approached. Lena found a spot near the back corner and began stretching, her muscles still tender from the previous class. Brian Tolland strode in exactly on time, his white GI crackling with each step. His presence seemed to suck the air from the room. "Line up!" he barked, his voice carrying the sharp edge of command. The students scrambled to attention. Lena took her place in the back row, keeping her expression neutral as Tolland's gaze swept across the class. 20 push-ups, he ordered. Perfect form only. Battle. Front and center. Lena moved forward, maintaining her composure despite the sudden spotlight. The mat felt hard under her hands as she assumed the push-up position. Everyone watch, Tolland announced. Let's see what our new student brings to the table. Lena began her push-ups, keeping her back straight and her movements controlled. The other students had started their own, but she could feel their eyes on her. Slower, Tolland commanded. Control that descent. You're not in a race. She adjusted her pace, arms trembling slightly from yesterday's workout. When she finished, the rest of the class had long since completed their set. Interesting form, Tolland said, his tone carrying a hint of mockery. Very strong-willed approach. Back in line. The warm-up continued with jumping jacks and squats. Tolland's commands grew sharper, his corrections more pointed, especially when directed at Lena. Basic stances, he called out. Battle. Demonstrate front stance for the class. Lena stepped forward again, sinking into the familiar position. Her front leg bent, back leg straight, weight distributed exactly as she'd learned years ago. Hold it, Tolland instructed. He circled her slowly, like a predator sizing up prey. Hold it. Hold it. The seconds ticked by. Lena's thighs burned, but she maintained the stance. Other students shifted uncomfortably as Tolland continued his inspection. Notice the attitude in the stance, he commented to the class. Some people think they know better than traditional teaching. Think their way is just as good. Finally, he allowed her to return to her spot. The man next to her shot her a sympathetic glance, before quickly looking away. During partner drills, Lena found herself working with a younger white man who barely made eye contact. They practiced basic blocks and strikes, but he pulled his techniques short. as if afraid to make real contact. "More power!" Talon shouted from across the room. "She can take it! Isn't that right, Battle?" Lena kept her voice level. "I'm here to learn, Sensei." "Are you?" He approached, hands clasped behind his back. "Because sometimes I wonder if some students are here to prove something instead." The rest of the class passed in a blur of thinly veiled comments and extended stance holding. By the end, Lena's legs felt like rubber, but she refused to show weakness. As she changed in the locker room, her phone buzzed with a text from Simone. "How was class?" "Brian seemed intense today when I passed by the training room." Lena typed back, "Interesting experience. We'll talk soon." Another message popped up. "You okay? I know it can be overwhelming at first." "I'm fine," Lena responded, though her fingers hesitated over the keys. "Just different than I expected." The parking lot was nearly empty when Lena emerged. She sat in her car, letting out a long breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The dashboard clock read 8:45 p.m., nearly 2 hours of what had felt like being under a microscope. She rubbed her temples, trying to sort through the evening's events. The unnecessary corrections, the loaded comments, the way Tolland had used her as an example just a little too often. Each moment alone could be explained away, but together they formed a pattern she recognized all too well from her years investigating workplace discrimination. "One more try," she said aloud to the empty car. "Give it one more class before making any decisions." The rec center's lights dimmed behind her as she pulled out of the parking lot. Her muscles ached, but it was the weight of Tolland's scrutiny that sat heaviest on her shoulders. What should have been a step toward healing already felt like stepping into familiar battle lines. A passing car's headlights illuminated her face in the rearview mirror. The woman reflected. There looked tired but resolute, the same expression she'd worn through countless investigations and confrontations in her career. The drive home was quiet, broken only by the soft hum of her car's engine and the occasional tap of her fingers on the steering wheel. Thursday's class loomed ahead like a challenge she wasn't sure she wanted to accept, but walking away wasn't in her nature. Not yet, anyway. Thursday evening arrived with a heavy humidity that clung to the Missouri air. Lena pulled into the rec center parking lot, noticing more cars than usual. She sat for a moment, hands still on the steering wheel, centering herself. "Just focus on the training," she whispered, gathering her gym bag. The familiar weight of her GI inside reminded her why she'd started this journey. For herself, not anyone else. The locker room buzzed with activity. A group of women she hadn't seen before chatted near the mirrors, their white uniforms crisp and new. They quieted as Lena entered, offering tight smiles before returning to their conversation. Lena changed methodically, each movement deliberate and calm. She'd spent the past day mentally preparing, determined to rise above the tension. Her muscles still ached from Tuesday's extended stance holding, but she pushed the discomfort aside. The training room was packed when she entered. At least 30 students filled the space, their white uniforms creating a sea of movement as they warmed up. Lena found a spot near the back wall, beginning her stretches with measured breaths. Brian Tolland's entrance commanded immediate attention. He wore a different GI today, darker, more expensive looking. His brown belt was tied with precise angles, and his smile carried an edge she recognized from years of dealing with men who enjoyed their authority too much. "Line up!" he called out. The class scrambled to form neat rows. Special treat today. We're focusing on self-defense, real-world applications of our art. Lena maintained her position in the back row, keeping her face neutral as Tolland began his lecture. He paced the front of the room, describing scenarios of street attacks and home invasions with almost eager detail. "The key is situational awareness," he continued, his eyes scanning the room. "You need to be ready for anything. Battle, front and center." Lena's heart jumped, but her steps remained steady as she moved forward. She could feel the collective gaze of the class following her movement. "Perfect volunteer," Talon said, his smile widening. "Let's demonstrate a common attack scenario. Turn around." She hesitated for a fraction of a second, before complying, her back now to him and the class. The position made her neck tingle with vulnerability. "Attackers love to come from behind," Talon announced to the room. "A rear chokehold is a favorite of street thugs. I'll demonstrate the proper defense." His arm suddenly wrapped around her neck, bicep and forearm creating a vice grip. The pressure was immediate and professional. Clearly, he'd done this before. "Notice the placement," he called out to the class. "This is a blood choke, cutting off circulation to the brain. In a real attack, you'd have about 3 seconds before losing consciousness." But 3 seconds passed, and his grip didn't loosen. Lena tapped his arm, the universal signal to release. His hold remained firm. "Some attackers are stronger than you'd expect," he continued, voice carrying a hint of amusement. "You can't always rely on your first defense." The pressure increased. Lena's vision began to blur at the edges. She tapped again, more urgently this time. Around her, the class shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. "Sometimes you have to really want it," Talon said, chuckling. The sound vibrated through his chest against her back. "Really fight for that breath." Black spots danced in Lena's vision. Her lungs burned. The room seemed to tilt sideways as panic clawed at her chest. This wasn't training anymore. This was something else. Something familiar from her years investigating abuse of power. Through the fog of oxygen deprivation, muscle memory from long-ago self-defense classes surfaced. Her body moved before her mind could catch up. Drop weight, shift center, create space. Her elbow drove back hard into his solar plexus. The grip loosened just enough. She twisted, breaking the hold with a sharp movement that caught him off balance. Years of training took over. Her hip positioned perfectly, her hands gripped his GI, and in one fluid motion, she threw him. The impact of his body hitting the mat echoed through the silent room. Talon landed hard on his side, the air rushing from his lungs in a pained grunt. He tried to push himself up, face contorted in shock and anger. Lena didn't wait to see more. She turned and walked toward the door, her steps measured and controlled despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. The class parted before her, their expressions a mix of awe and fear. Behind her, she could hear Talon's labored breathing and the beginning of shocked whispers. She didn't look back. Her hand found the door handle, and she stepped out into the hallway, leaving the heavy silence behind. Lena's hands trembled slightly as she pushed through the women's locker room door. Her throat felt raw, and she could still feel the phantom pressure of Talon's chokehold. She moved quickly to her locker, grabbing her gym bag without bothering to change out of her gi. The sound of the main door slamming open made her spin around. Brian Talon stood there, his face twisted with rage and humiliation. He'd ignored the women's locker room sign completely. "You think you can just walk away after that?" he snarled, advancing toward her. His right arm hung awkwardly at his side, and a sheen of sweat covered his forehead. "You just assaulted an instructor." Lena backed up, keeping her bag between them. "Leave now, Brian. This is the women's locker room, and you're out of line." He lunged forward, his left hand reaching for her GI. "I'm not done with you." Years of training kicked in again. Lena stepped aside, letting his momentum carry him past her. As he turned, she caught his extended arm, using his own force against him. The movement was clean, precise, a textbook joint lock. But Brian fought against it, twisting violently instead of following the natural direction of the hold. There was a sickening pop as his shoulder dislocated. He stumbled, trying to catch himself with his other hand. His wrist bent wrong against the tile floor with a sharp crack. The scream that erupted from him echoed off the locker room walls. Several women who had followed the commotion stood frozen in the doorway. "Someone call an ambulance!" a voice shouted from the hallway. "Sensei's hurt!" Lena stepped back, keeping her distance, as Brian writhed on the floor, cursing through clenched teeth. His face had gone pale, and sweat dripped onto the tiles beneath him. "Don't move him!" called one of the assistant instructors, pushing through the growing crowd. "Give him space. Has anyone called 911? "Already did," someone answered. "They're on their way." The locker room filled with chaos. People talking over each other, phones being pulled out, someone trying to comfort Brian while others backed away looking horrified. A few students glared at Lena, while others couldn't meet her eyes. Lena straightened her GI, picked up her bag, and walked calmly toward the exit. The crowd parted automatically, no one daring to stop her. She could hear Brian's pained groans behind her, mixed with threats and curses. The evening air felt cool against her face as she crossed the parking lot. Her car stood alone in the far corner, away from the cluster of vehicles near the entrance. As she reached it, she heard someone calling her name. "Aunt Lena, wait!" Simone jogged toward her, still in her workout clothes. She must have been in the building for her evening youth counseling session. "I saw everything," Simone said, catching her breath. "Through the viewing window. Are you okay?" Lena unlocked her car, placing her bag in the back seat. "I'm fine. Would you like to get dinner? I could use the company." 20 minutes later, they sat in a quiet booth at Ming's Garden, their usual Chinese restaurant. The familiar scent of ginger and garlic helped settle Lena's nerves as they waited for their food. "The way you moved," Simone shook her head, still processing. "I've never seen anything like that. Where did you learn to fight like that?" Lena sipped her tea carefully. "College self-defense classes mostly. Your uncle insisted I keep training after we married. Said my job made me a target. He was right." Simone leaned forward. "Tolland was trying to hurt you. Everyone could see it. That chokehold went way too long." Their food arrived. Kung Pao chicken for Simone, beef and broccoli for Lena. They ate in thoughtful silence for a few minutes. "What happens now?" Simone finally asked, pushing a piece of chicken around her plate. "Now we stay quiet," Lena replied, her voice firm but gentle. "Let things play out naturally. No social media, no discussing it with others. Just wait and watch." Simone nodded, but her hands fidgeted with her napkin. "I'm proud of you, you know, for standing up to him, for protecting yourself. Thank you, baby." Lena reached across the table and squeezed her niece's hand. "Sometimes that's all we can do. Protect ourselves and wait for the right moment to act." They finished their meal in comfortable silence, the restaurant's soft music and clinking dishes creating a peaceful barrier between them and the evening's violence. Lena felt her muscles gradually relaxing, though her mind remained alert, cataloging details and possibilities. Outside, the sun had set completely, turning the Missouri sky into a canvas of deep purple and fading orange. Streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows across the parking lot as they walked to their cars. Morning sunlight streamed through Lena's kitchen window, casting warm patterns on her wooden table. She wrapped her hands around her favorite coffee mug, a gift from her late husband with "World's Most Patient Investigator" printed on it. The morning felt deceptively normal after last night's chaos. Her phone lay silent beside her. No messages, no calls. The quiet made her uneasy. A sharp knock at the front door broke through her thoughts. Lena set down her mug and walked to the entrance, expecting to see Simone. Instead, two uniformed police officers stood on her porch, their faces set in professional masks. "Mrs. Battle?" the taller officer asked, his hand resting near his belt. "I'm Officer Martinez. This is Officer Chen. We need you to come with us." Lena's investigator instincts kicked in immediately. "May I see your warrant?" Officer Chen produced a document. You're under arrest for aggravated assault. Please turn around and place your hands behind your back." "This is ridiculous," Lena said, but she complied, knowing resistance would only make things worse. The handcuffs felt cold against her wrists. "I acted in self-defense." "You can explain that downtown," Martinez said, guiding her toward their patrol car. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Neighbors peeked through their windows as the officers led her down her front walk. Mrs. Peterson across the street didn't even try to hide her staring. Lena held her head high, refusing to show any shame. The ride to the station was short, but tense. Lena watched familiar streets pass by, her mind already working through next steps. As they pulled into the station parking lot, she spoke up. "I'd like to call my attorney, Carla Winston." Inside, the booking process felt surreal. Fingerprints, mugshot, personal items cataloged and stored. The holding cell smelled of bleach and despair. Lena sat on the metal bench, back straight, face calm, though her heart raced. An hour passed before a familiar voice echoed down the corridor. "Where is she?" "I'm her attorney." Carla Winston's heels clicked against the concrete floor. "Lena? You okay?" Lena stood as Carla appeared with an officer. "I'm fine." "What are they saying?" Carla's face was grim. "Brian Tolland filed charges last night. Claims you attacked him without provocation in the women's locker room. Says you followed him in there and assaulted him when he tried to leave." "That's absurd," Lena said, her voice steady despite her rising anger. "He followed me in there. He grabbed at me first." "I know. But he's got 5 students who provided witness statements backing his version." Carla opened her briefcase, pulling out papers. "They're painting you as an aggressive troublemaker who couldn't handle criticism in class." The cell door opened, and Carla stepped inside. "I've arranged bail. We'll have you out of here in an hour." "But Lena," she lowered her voice, "this is serious. They're pushing for maximum charges. Tolland has friends in the department." "Of course he does," Lena muttered. "He's one of them." While they waited for the paperwork, Carla took detailed notes as Lena recounted everything. The chokehold, the locker room confrontation, every word exchanged. "Document everything," Carla instructed. "Your bruises, any marks on your throat. Write down every interaction you remember from that class. Names of students present, staff members, everyone." The release process dragged on, each minute under fluorescent lights wearing at Lena's nerves. Finally, she walked out into the late morning sun, Carla beside her. "I'll drive you home," Carla offered. "We need to talk strategy." In Carla's car, Lena finally let her shoulders drop. "I can't believe they're all lying for him." "People protect their own," Carla said, navigating through traffic. "Especially when their own has power. But we'll fight this, Lena. I've got your back." At home, Lena stood in her bathroom, examining her reflection. Purple bruises circled her throat where Brian's chokehold had pressed in. Similar marks dotted her arms where he'd grabbed her. She touched them gently, wincing. "The system that was supposed to protect me just made me the criminal," she said to her reflection. "How did I become the aggressor when I was just trying to survive?" She could hear Carla in the kitchen, already making calls to her legal team. The sound of papers shuffling, phones ringing, plans being made. But all Lena could focus on was her reflection. A woman who'd spent her career fighting injustice, now caught in its grip. The bruises would fade, but the truth of her situation settled heavy in her chest. This wasn't just about one night anymore. This was about her freedom, her future, her life. Lena sat across from Carla in the attorney's cluttered office, watching her friend flip through a thick stack of documents. Late afternoon sun filtered through Venetian blinds, casting striped shadows across the mahogany desk. "They're not messing around," Carla said, tapping a highlighted paragraph. 3 separate charges: aggravated assault, battery, and, get this, interfering with a city-sponsored youth program. Youth program? Lena leaned forward. It was an adult karate class. That's where things get interesting. Carla pulled out another document. Brian Tolland's karate program isn't just a rec center class. It's part of something called the Youth Empowerment Pipeline. They got a huge grant last year, nearly $500,000. Lena's investigator instincts sparked. For what exactly? According to this, Carla scanned the page, it's a comprehensive behavioral modification and leadership development initiative targeting at-risk youth through martial arts discipline. She looked up. Ring any bells from your civil investigator days? Yeah, sounds like a slush fund wrapped in feel-good language. Lena stood, pacing the office. Who approved the grant? City Council, unanimous vote. No public hearing, just pushed through in a consent agenda. Carla handed her more papers. Look at the Oversight Committee. Lena studied the names. Former police chief, retired judge. Wait, isn't that the mayor's brother-in-law? Good to see those investigator skills aren't rusty. Carla smiled grimly. There's more. Tolland runs 3 different nonprofits that all feed into this program. The money trail is creative. Let me guess. No public records. Sealed under youth privacy provisions. Carla sighed. Very convenient. Lena spent the next hour taking notes, her old training kicking in. Names, dates, connections. A pattern emerged of closed-door meetings and rubber stamp approvals. Later that afternoon, she drove to the rec center to cancel her membership. The front desk staff, who had been friendly before, now avoided eye contact. A group of women whispered as she passed, falling silent when she looked their way. In the parking lot, she noticed a white SUV with tinted windows. It pulled out shortly after she did. 3 turns later, it was still there. Amateur hour, she muttered, making a series of quick turns through a shopping complex. The SUV fell behind, but the message was clear. She was being watched. At home, Lena created a spreadsheet tracking Tolland's connections. His karate program fed students into special mentorship sessions. Those led to leadership camps run by another nonprofit. The same names kept appearing on different boards. Her phone buzzed. Simone texting, "You okay? People are saying crazy stuff about you." "I'm fine," Lena typed back. "Stay clear of this for now." She worked until sunset, digging through public records online. Property records showed Tolland owned 3 buildings through an LLC. Tax filings revealed circular funding between his organizations. It all looked legal on paper, but Lena recognized the patterns of hidden money and hidden power. Her doorbell rang. No one there, but a package sat on her step. Case files she'd requested from her old contacts. Inside, she found police reports, grant applications, and internal memos. Most were heavily redacted, but between the black lines, a story emerged of complaints buried and questions deflected. The sound of a car door slamming made her look up. Through her window, she saw the white SUV parked across the street. As she watched, it drove away, slowly. Lena needed fresh air. She walked to her mailbox, breathing in the cool evening breeze. A piece of paper was stuck to the metal box, held by clear tape. She pulled it free, stomach tightening as she read the typed message. "You picked the wrong one. Battle." Under the porch light, she examined the paper carefully. Standard printer paper, standard font. No fingerprints likely to be found. She took a photo with her phone before placing it in a plastic bag. Evidence was evidence. Inside, she added the threat to her growing file. The pieces were starting to fit together. A former cop running a lucrative program with no oversight, using martial arts as cover for something bigger. A network of protection built on silence and fear. But they had picked the wrong one too. Lena Battle hadn't spent 20 years investigating municipal corruption just to back down from threats. She knew how these systems worked, and more importantly, she knew how to break them open. Her phone rang. Carla again. "Just got word," her friend said. "They're pushing for an emergency hearing next week. Want to fast-track the charges." "Of course they do," Lena replied, staring at the threatening note. "They want this buried quick and quiet." "You should lay low for a few days," Carla suggested. "Let me handle the legal side." "No," Lena said firmly. "That's exactly what they want. I'm not hiding, Carla. Not from this." She hung up and looked at her reflection in the dark window. The bruises on her neck had faded to yellow, but the fire in her eyes burned bright. They thought they could scare her into silence. They thought wrong. The youth center's parking lot was nearly empty when Lena pulled in the next morning. A faded mural of children holding hands decorated the building's facade. Through the front windows, she could see Deshaun Peoples working with a small group of boys at a table. She'd known Deshaun for years. Her late husband had mentored him through college. Now he ran youth programs here, fighting the same battles from a different angle. The door chimed as she entered. Deshaun looked up, his face breaking into a warm smile. "Mrs. Battle." "Hold up, let me finish with these kings real quick." Lena sat in the waiting area, watching him work. He had a gift with the kids, mixing firm guidance with genuine care. After 15 minutes, the boys packed up their books, each one giving Deshaun a formal handshake before leaving. "Sorry about that," Deshaun said, pulling up a chair. "SAT prep waits for no one. What brings you by?" "Brian Tolland." The name changed the air in the room. Deshaun's smile faded. "Yeah, I heard what went down at the rec center." He leaned back, studying her. "That man's been a problem for a minute. I'm starting to see that. Found out his karate program gets city funding for youth intervention." Deshaun's jaw tightened. "That's what he calls it. We call it something else around here." "Tell me." He glanced around the empty center before continuing. "Started about 2 years ago. He shows up at schools, juvenile court, anywhere he can find black boys who've had run-ins with the system. Offers them this special leadership program through martial arts. Says it'll clear their records, get them back on track. And the parents agree? Some do. When a white ex-cop in a fancy GI tells you he can keep your kid out of jail, it sounds good. Especially when the judges and probation officers are all pushing it too. Lena took out her notebook. What happens to the kids? First, it's just karate classes. Strict discipline. Lots of talk about respect and control. Then the good ones, the ones who don't quit, get invited to private training. That's when things change. How so? Deshaun's voice dropped lower. Physical punishment disguised as training. Making them hold stress positions for hours. Running till they throw up. All while he's telling them this is what they deserve. This is how they learn respect. Lena's pen moved quickly across the page. Any formal complaints? Who are they going to complain to? The police? The city? Everyone's in his pocket. Deshaun stood, walking to a filing cabinet. But I keep my own records. He returned with a thick folder. Names, dates, patterns. Been documenting everything I hear. Latest one really got to me. Kid named Jalil Warren. What happened to him? Straight A student. Wanted to be a firefighter. Got caught with weed at school last year. Judge gave him a choice. Juvenile detention or Tolland's program. He picked the program. And? Did the regular classes for 6 months. Then Tolland picked him for the advanced leadership group. Some kind of intensive training retreat. Deshaun's hands clenched. That was 4 months ago. No one's seen him since. Missing persons report? Filed by his grandmother. Police said he's probably just being rebellious, running with a bad crowd. But Jalil wasn't like that. He was focused, had plans. Lena studied the file. Any idea where these retreats happen? Tolland owns some property outside the city. Old warehouse, couple of buildings. Everything's through shell companies, but kids who've been there describe the same place. They spent the next hour going through Deshawn's records. Stories of psychological manipulation, physical abuse, and systematic intimidation emerged, all carefully hidden behind the veneer of discipline and rehabilitation. "Why are you showing me all this?" Lena asked finally. Deshawn met her eyes. "Because you're the first person who fought back and didn't disappear. Maybe you're the one who can break this thing open." As if on cue, Lena's phone buzzed. Simone's name flashed on the screen. "Auntie?" Her niece's voice was shaky. "Someone slashed my tires at work. All 4 of them." Lena's grip tightened on the phone. "Are you safe?" "Yeah, I'm inside. Security's here. But there was a note, too. Said to tell you to back off while you still can. Stay there. I'm coming to get you." Lena stood, gathering her papers. "Deshawn, I need copies of everything." He was already moving to the copier. "Take the originals. I've got backups hidden. And Lena?" He paused. "Watch yourself. Tolland's got eyes everywhere." "Let him watch," she replied, tucking the files into her bag. "I've spent my whole career exposing people like him. He's just another bully with badges and bank accounts." But as she drove toward Simone's workplace, Lena felt the weight of what she'd learned. This wasn't just about one bad instructor anymore. It was about a system designed to break young black bodies and spirits, all under the guise of reform. And somewhere out there, Jalil Warren was still missing. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in Carla's downtown office. Stacks of paper covered every surface, the fruits of 3 weeks of public records requests. Lena sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by financial documents and meeting minutes. "Got something?" Carla called from her desk. City Council approved a $450,000 grant to Youth Empowerment Initiatives last spring. Sole source contract, no competitive bidding. Lena looked up from her own stack. "That's Brian's nonprofit?" "On paper, yes." Carla adjusted her reading glasses. "But look at the corporate structure. He's not listed anywhere. The directors are all former police brass and city officials. Smart. Keep his name clean while the money flows." Lena reached for another folder. "Any reporting requirements?" "Bare minimum. Quarterly participant numbers, some feel-good success stories. No real oversight." Carla's printer hummed to life. "The prevention fund that wrote the check? Their director played softball with Brian for 20 years. Lena stood, stretching her stiff muscles. The wall clock showed 7:30 p.m. They'd been at this since morning, piecing together the paper trail of Brian's empire. "Check this out," she said, holding up a spreadsheet. "Equipment purchases last year, $12,000 for training restraints. Since when does karate need restraints?" Carla frowned. "Add it to the pattern file, along with those mysterious transportation costs to the warehouse property." Speaking of patterns, Lena moved to Carla's computer. "Can you pull up that sealed police database again?" "Already on it." Carla's fingers flew across the keyboard. "What are we looking for?" "Brian's service record. Specifically any complaints involving teens around 2019. The screen filled with redacted documents. Carla scrolled slowly, scanning for keywords. "Here, excessive force investigation, September 2019. Subject was Marcus Warren, age 16. Lena's breath caught. Warren, as in Jalil's brother. Carla clicked through the files. Brian responded to a noise complaint. Found Marcus and some friends playing basketball after hours. Claimed the boy resisted commands. Let me guess. He had to use necessary force to ensure compliance. Broke the kid's collarbone. Department buried it, but he was quietly moved to desk duty. Resigned 6 months later. Right when his karate program got that first city grant, Lena paced the office. So he loses his badge for hurting one Warren boy, then gets handed $500,000 to mentor the other one? Who then disappears into his special training program? Carla printed the case files. This is beyond corrupt, Lena. This is systematic. We need to find Jalil. Lena gathered the new documents. These warehouse visits, the equipment purchases, the brother connection, it all points to a crash of breaking glass cut through the night. Both women ducked instinctively. Car alarms began wailing in the parking lot below. "Stay here," Carla said, reaching for her phone. But Lena was already moving to the window. 3 stories down, her car sat in its usual spot. The windshield was spiderwebbed with cracks, where a large rock had struck it. Even from this height, she could see the white paper wrapped around the stone. "I'll call security," Carla said. No time. Lena was already heading for the stairs. They'll be long gone. The parking lot was empty when she reached her car. The rock had bounced into the passenger seat, trailing glass fragments. With steady hands, she unwrapped the note. 2 words, block letters. "Drop it." Carla appeared beside her, phone raised to take pictures. "This is evidence. We need to document everything." Already on it. Lena photographed the damage from multiple angles. Add it to the pattern file. Pattern file? "Lena, this is way past patterns. They're escalating. First the tires, now this." "Good." Lena's voice was steel. "Means we're getting close." Close to what? Getting hurt? Having worse than rocks thrown at us? Close to the truth. Lena handed Carla the note. "Brian's not just trying to scare us anymore. He's desperate." They stood in the empty lot, surrounded by broken glass and warning signs. Above them, the office lights still burned, illuminating the scattered papers of their investigation. Financial records, police files, and somewhere in those pages, the key to finding Jalil Warren. "We should call it a night," Carla said finally. "I'll have my assistant make copies of everything tomorrow." "And Lena?" She touched her friend's arm. "Be careful going home." "I'm always careful." Lena brushed glass from her car seat. "But I'm not backing down. Not when we're this close." The rock sat heavy in her hand, its message clear. But clearer still was the fear behind it. The desperate act of a man watching his carefully constructed world begin to crack. Lena parked her car outside Simone's apartment complex, the streetlights casting long shadows across the empty parking lot. It was nearly midnight, but after finding that threatening note, she couldn't wait until morning. Not with Simone's slashed tires fresh in her mind. She climbed the stairs to the 2nd floor, her footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway. At Simone's door, she knocked softly, then harder, when there was no response. "Who is it?" Simone's voice was muffled, cautious. "It's Aunt Lena. We need to talk." The door opened just enough to show Simone's face, her eyes red and puffy. "Auntie? What are you doing here so late? Can I come in?" Lena glanced over her shoulder. "Please." Simone stepped back, letting her aunt inside. The apartment was dark, except for a small lamp in the corner. Tissues littered the coffee table. "You've been crying," Lena said, settling onto the couch. "Talk to me, baby." Simone wrapped her arms around herself, pacing the small living room. "I can't. I shouldn't. They're threatening both of us now." Lena's voice was gentle but firm. "Whatever you're holding inside, it's eating you up. And I think it has something to do with Brian Tolland." At his name, Simone flinched. She sank into an armchair, hands trembling. "How did you know?" "Because I see how you react when he's mentioned. Because I found out about his special youth programs. And because no one gets this scared unless they've seen what he's really capable of." Tears spilled down Simone's cheeks. "I was 16, she whispered. "My school had this partnership with his dojo. Said it would help troubled kids learn discipline. Lena's heart clenched, but she stayed silent, letting her niece find the words. I wasn't even troubled. I just talked too much in class sometimes. But they said it would look good on college applications. Simone wiped her eyes. The first few weeks were okay. Basic moves, lots of talk about respect and self-control. Then one day, I questioned something he said about girls being naturally weaker. She stood again, moving to the window. He called me up for a demonstration, said he'd show me why questioning authority was dangerous. He put me in that same chokehold he used on you. Lena's fists tightened. How long? Until I almost passed out. When he finally let go, I couldn't stop coughing. The other students just watched. Then he dragged me to this back room, said I needed to learn my place. The storage room? Lena remembered seeing a locked door at the dojo. Simone nodded. He left me there for hours. No water, no bathroom. Just sitting in the dark, listening to the classes continue like nothing was wrong. Her voice cracked. When he finally let me out, he said if I told anyone, he'd make sure I never got into college. Oh, baby. Lena moved to embrace her niece, but Simone stepped back. That's not all. She hugged herself tighter. Last month, when Jalil started coming to classes, I saw the same look in Brian's eyes. That hunger for control. Jalil was smart, asked too many questions. Just like me. What happened to him? Brian said he showed leadership potential. Started keeping him after class for private lessons. Then one day, he announced Jalil was going to an intensive training retreat to build character. Simone's voice dropped. No one's seen him since. Lena felt cold anger settling in her chest. Do you know where they took him? I heard Brian on the phone once, talking about some facility outside town, an old warehouse they converted. Simone finally met her aunt's eyes. The same place they sent Marcus after the police incident. Jalil's brother. Lena stood, pulling out her phone. We need to document everything you just told me. Times, dates, details. Can you do that? Simone nodded slowly. I should have spoken up sooner. When I saw what he did to you in class, I wanted to say something, but the fear still had hold of you. Lena squeezed her hand. But you're not alone anymore. And neither is Jalil. They spent the next hour recording Simone's statement, her voice growing stronger with each revealed detail. When they finished, the sky outside was beginning to lighten. What happens now? Simone asked, watching Lena gather her notes. Now we take this public. The city council, the press, everyone. Lena's expression was determined. Brian's power comes from silence. It's time to make some noise. They'll try to stop us. Simone straightened her shoulders. But I'm ready. No more hiding. As dawn broke over the city, aunt and niece sat together, planning their next moves. The fear wasn't gone, but something stronger had taken its place. The fierce determination of women who had found their voice and wouldn't be silenced again. The Sunday afternoon sun streamed through Lena's living room windows as people filed in, speaking in hushed tones. She had arranged the furniture in a circle, chairs, couch, even kitchen stools, to create an intimate space. Deshawn helped direct traffic, making sure everyone had somewhere to sit. Carla Winston arrived first, legal pad in hand, her gray twists pulled back in a neat bun. She gave Lena a quick hug before setting up in the corner. Marcus Johnson, from the St. Louis Black Voice, settled into an armchair, his press badge catching the light. Thank you all for coming, Lena began, standing in the center. I know it wasn't easy to be here today. 6 mothers sat together on the couch, their faces tight with worry. 3 fathers stood along the wall, arms crossed. Simone perched on a stool near the window, keeping watch. My name is Lena Battle, she continued. And like you, I've seen what Brian Tollin's program really is. Not discipline, not mentorship, but abuse masked as authority. A woman in a postal worker uniform raised her hand. "I'm Teresa Williams. My son Kevin went to those classes last spring. He came home with bruises he couldn't explain." "Bruises?" Marcus leaned forward, pen ready. On his neck, his arms. Teresa's voice shook. When I asked, he said it was normal training. But then he started having nightmares. Wouldn't eat. Finally told me Sensei Brian had been choking him until he learned respect. Deshawn nodded grimly. That's his signature move. Uses it to break them down. Another mother, younger than the rest, burst into tears. "My Malcolm's been gone 3 weeks now. They said it was some special training camp, but they won't tell me where. Won't let me talk to him." Carla moved to sit beside her. "What's your name, sister?" "Rochelle Taylor." She wiped her eyes. "Malcolm's only 14. He just wanted to learn karate like the other kids. Now my baby's missing, and nobody at the city will help." The room grew heavy with shared pain. One by one, parents spoke up. Stories of locked rooms, of racial taunts disguised as motivation, of children who came home different, scared, angry, silent. "We've got enough here for a class action," Carla said, flipping through pages of notes. "But we need signed statements, official documentation." "Will it be safe?" a father asked from the wall. "Man's got friends in high places." "Nothing about this is safe," Lena admitted. "But staying quiet? That's even more dangerous. Look what it's already cost our children." Marcus stood up. "The black voice will run the story. Full investigation, front page. But like Ms. Winston said, we need those affidavits." Deshawn passed out legal forms. "Take your time reading them. Be specific with dates, locations, everything you remember. The more detail, the harder it is for them to deny." For the next hour, the room was quiet except for pens scratching paper and occasional sniffles. Lena moved between groups, offering tissues, water, gentle encouragement. These were her people. Working parents who trusted a system that betrayed them, now finding strength in numbers. As the sun began to set, Carla collected the signed affidavits. 23 statements, she said quietly to Lena, plus Simone's testimony and your assault case. It's enough to force an investigation. The families left in small groups, hugging each other, exchanging phone numbers. Rochelle Taylor was the last to go, gripping Lena's hands. "Please help me find my boy." "We will," Lena promised. All of them. After everyone was gone, Lena stood in her kitchen with Carla, Deshawn, and Marcus, reviewing their next steps. The street outside had grown dark. Suddenly, Simone screamed from the front door. "Auntie, your car!" They rushed outside. Orange flames were shooting from under Lena's parked sedan, spreading rapidly. The heat hit them like a wall. "Get back!" Deshawn pulled them away as the gas tank caught with a whoosh. Fire raced along a trail of accelerant toward the garage. "Call 911!" Carla was already dialing. Neighbors emerged from their houses, shouting in alarm. Lena stood motionless on her lawn, watching flames devour her car and lick at her garage door. The vinyl siding began to bubble and melt. Black smoke billowed into the night sky. "They really playing with fire now," Deshawn muttered, his arm around a shaking Simone. Marcus snapped photos with his phone. "This is attempted murder. They're trying to send a message." "Oh, I got their message," Lena said, her voice steel hard. Her hands were steady as she watched part of her home burn. In the distance, sirens wailed their approach, but she barely heard them. The flames reflected in her eyes, turning them to burning coal. Red and blue lights splashed across the scene as fire trucks roared up. Firefighters jumped out, dragging hoses, shouting orders. But Lena didn't move from her spot on the grass, didn't flinch as water arced over her head. This wasn't just about karate classes anymore. This wasn't even about one corrupt ex-cop. This was about power and fear, and the lengths some would go to keep both. The heat from the fire pressed against her face, but Lena felt cold inside. The kind of cold that came with absolute clarity. The garage roof started to cave as the firefighters battled the blaze. Neighbors gathered in clumps, whispering and pointing. But Lena stood alone, jaw clenched, watching her property burn, and with it, any last doubt about what had to be done. Morning sunlight filtered through the coffee shop's windows, casting long shadows across the table where Lena sat with Marcus Johnson. Her laptop was open, surrounded by stacks of documents and photos. The smell of fresh coffee couldn't mask the lingering scent of smoke in her clothes. "I had to park 3 blocks away," Marcus said, settling into his chair. "Half the street's still blocked off from last night." Lena nodded, her eyes tired but focused. "Fire department says it was definitely arson. Found traces of gasoline everywhere." She pulled out a thick manila folder. "But that's not why we're here." Marcus set up his voice recorder and notebook. "Give me everything you've got. The black voice is ready to blow this wide open." First, the money trail. Lena spread out financial documents. Brian's nonprofit, Youth Empowerment Through Discipline, received $457,000 in city grants over 3 years. "Look at these expense reports." Marcus leaned in, frowning. "Equipment costs for 100 students? His class never had more than 20 kids." "Exactly. And here," Lena pointed to highlighted lines, "monthly payments to external training facilities. No addresses, no details, just money disappearing into thin air." "Or into someone's pocket," Marcus muttered, taking photos of the papers. Lena pulled out more files. "These are sealed court records from Brian's police days. Had to call in favors to get them." She spread out photocopies marked with red stamps. "Excessive force complaints, all involving minority youth, all buried." Marcus's pen flew across his notepad. "How many?" 7 documented cases, including one against Malik Warren, Jalil's older brother. Lena's voice tightened. "Brian broke the boy's arm during a routine stop. Department quietly moved him to community outreach instead of firing him." "Jesus." Marcus shook his head. "And now he's got city money to keep doing it legally?" "Not for long." Lena opened a fresh folder. 23 sworn statements from parents. Details of abuse, confinement, racial intimidation, plus photos. She laid out pictures of bruised children, marked necks, tear-stained faces. Marcus studied each image carefully. "This is going to cause an earthquake." "That's the point." Lena pulled up financial records on her laptop. Cross-referenced the grant money with these shell companies, all registered to former police officers. They're laundering taxpayer funds through fake training programs. For the next hour, they pieced together the story. Marcus recorded quotes, scanned documents, and built a timeline of corruption. Lena provided context from her years as a civil investigator, connecting dots others might miss. "What about your assault case?" Marcus asked. "They'll try to discredit you." "Let them try." Lena handed him security camera footage from the rec center. Full video of Brian choking me, refusing to let go. Clear as day. Marcus whistled low. "This is dynamite, Ms. Battle." "Run it all," Lena said firmly. "Every detail, every name. No holding back. It'll hit tomorrow's front page." Marcus packed up carefully. "You know they'll come at you hard. They already tried burning down my house." Lena's smile was grim. "I'm done being scared." Later that afternoon, Lena's phone buzzed. It was Carla. "They're trying to make a deal," her lawyer said. "City manager wants to meet. Private settlement. Full dismissal of charges. In exchange for what? Silence. Complete non-disclosure." Lena laughed sharply. "Tell them to shove it. I don't want their money. I want justice." They're scared, Lena. This could take down half the police commission. Good. Maybe then somebody will actually look for these missing kids. As if on cue, her other line beeped. Deshawn's number. Lena, you need to sit down for this. Her heart thumped. What is it? We found Jalil. Deshawn's voice shook. He's alive. Someplace called Camp Discipline out in the Ozarks. Ex-cops running it like a prison. Lena gripped the phone tight. Is he okay? Physically, yeah. But Lena, there's more kids there. Dozens of them. All from Brian's program. She closed her eyes, seeing Teresa's tears, Rochelle's desperation. Send me the location. And Deshawn? Call Marcus. He needs to add this to tomorrow's story. Already did. Police scanners going crazy. Looks like some honest cops finally got wind of it. Lena hung up and stood at her window, watching the sun sink behind the trees. Her garage was a charred skeleton, her car a burned-out shell. But tomorrow, the truth would rise from those ashes like a phoenix, and no amount of threats could stop it now. The headline was already written in her mind. Black Belt, Broken Trust. City-funded youth program exposed as abuse ring. By this time tomorrow, everyone would know. And Brian Tollin's reign of terror would finally end. The City Hall chamber buzzed with tension. Every seat was filled, with people standing along the walls and spilling into the hallway. News cameras lined the back wall, their red lights blinking like watchful eyes. Lena sat in the front row between Simone and Deshawn, her spine straight, her expression calm. Mayor Brower tapped her gavel. This emergency session of the St. Charles City Council will come to order. Her voice wavered slightly. We're here to address serious allegations regarding the Youth Empowerment Through Discipline program. Lena studied the council members' faces. Some wouldn't meet her eyes. Others looked sick. The Black Voice newspaper lay on every desk, its headline screaming the truth they'd tried to hide. First speaker, Lena Battle. Lena walked to the podium, adjusting the microphone. Camera shutters clicked rapidly. My name is Lena Battle. I'm a retired civil investigator, and I'm here to expose a system of abuse, masked as rehabilitation. She laid out the evidence methodically. Financial records, sealed complaints, witness statements. Her voice grew stronger with each document. This program, funded by your tax dollars, has been trafficking black children into illegal detention camps. She held up photos. These facilities, run by ex-police officers, use isolation and physical abuse under the guise of discipline. Gasps echoed through the chamber. A woman in the back began to cry. When I discovered this abuse, I was threatened. My car was bombed. But I stand here because these children deserve justice. Lena looked directly at the council. And you all enabled it. Mayor Brower shifted uncomfortably. Ms. Battle, these are serious accusations. They're facts, Mayor. Documented facts. Lena stepped back. And now you'll hear from the victims. Simone approached the podium next, her hands shaking slightly. I was 16 when Brian Tollin choked me unconscious and locked me in a storage room. Her voice cracked. He said it was for my own good, that black girls needed extra discipline. The room fell silent. Simone continued, describing hours of confinement, racial slurs masked as tough love, and the shame that kept her quiet for years. I blamed myself, she said softly, until I saw him do it to my aunt, until I learned about Jalil. Teresa Warren, Jalil's mother, could barely walk to the podium. Deshawn supported her arm. She clutched a piece of paper but didn't read it. My boy, she whispered into the microphone. My beautiful boy. They took him for 3 months. Said it was special training. Leadership camp. She looked up, tears streaming. He came back broken. Mayor Brower dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Mrs. Warren, we had no idea. You knew! Teresa's voice rose sharply. All of you knew. The money, the contracts, the missing children. You just didn't care. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Signs rose. Justice for our children. And defund the abuse. Deshawn stepped forward, holding Jalil's written statement. Jalil Warren couldn't be here today. He's still receiving trauma counseling. But he asked me to read his words. The room stilled as Deshawn began reading. They came for me after karate class. Said Sensei picked me for special training. Mom was so proud. Deshawn's voice tightened. They drove me to a camp in the woods. No phone, no contact. Just push-ups and punches until we collapsed. When we talked back, they used chokeholds. When we cried, they called us weak. People in the audience wiped tears. A council member looked like he might be sick. 3 months of beatings. 3 months of being called animals. 3 months of watching other kids break. Deshawn paused, steadying himself. They said it was making us stronger, teaching us respect. But all they taught us was fear. Mayor Brower's hands trembled as she reached for her gavel. Before she could speak, the chamber doors burst open. Police officers entered, led by a stern-faced detective. "Brian Tolland is outside," the detective announced. "We're moving to arrest him now." The crowd surged toward the windows. On the steps below, Brian stood surrounded by reporters, trying to defend himself. His face went pale as officers approached with handcuffs. "Brian Tolland," the detective's voice carried through the open doors. "You're under arrest for child endangerment, criminal confinement, and aggravated assault." Cameras flashed as Brian was cuffed. He tried to pull away, shouting about conspiracies and ungrateful youth. But his voice was drowned out by the cheers from inside. Mayor Brower stood, her face ashen. "In light of these revelations, I am immediately calling for a full criminal investigation into the Youth Empowerment Through Discipline program and all associated facilities." She swallowed hard. God help us all when the full truth comes out. Lena watched from the window as Brian was led to a police car, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Simone squeezed her hand. Deshawn nodded grimly. Outside, parents hugged their children, reporters rushed to file stories, and activists celebrated a first victory. But Lena knew this was just the beginning. There were more children to find, more abusers to expose, more systems to dismantle. The real work was just starting. The courthouse hallway buzzed with nervous energy. Lena smoothed her navy blazer, watching families file into the courtroom. Simone stood beside her, clutching a leather portfolio filled with victim statements. "You ready for this?" Simone asked. Lena nodded. "Been ready for weeks." Inside, the room was packed. Reporters filled the back row, notebooks ready. Brian Tolland sat at the defense table in an ill-fitting suit, his shoulder still in a brace. He didn't turn around. Judge Martinez entered, and everyone rose. "Be seated," she commanded. "We're here for the formal indictment of Brian Tolland." The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Helen Chen, stood. "Your Honor, the grand jury has returned multiple indictments." She lifted a thick document. 27 counts of child endangerment, 15 counts of criminal confinement, 12 counts of aggravated assault, 6 counts of wire fraud related to misuse of city funds. Tolland's attorney shifted uncomfortably. In the gallery, Teresa Warren grabbed her husband's hand. "Additionally," Chen continued, "we've added 3 counts of conspiracy charges involving former city officials." She glanced at the empty chairs where council members used to sit. "Resignations don't equal immunity." Judge Martinez reviewed the papers. "Mr. Tolland, please rise." Brian stood slowly, his face gray. Gone was the arrogant sensei who'd terrorized children. Now he just looked old and scared. "How do you plead?" "Not guilty, Your Honor." His voice cracked. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Lena watched several parents shake their heads in disgust. Very well. Judge Martinez's tone was ice. Given the severity of charges and flight risk, bail is denied. The defendant will remain in custody. As deputies approached Brian, his lawyer quickly added, "Your Honor, regarding Mrs. Battle's civil countersuit." "Yes," the judge shuffled papers. "The city has accepted full liability for false arrest and agreed to damages of $850,000. She looked directly at Lena. Though no amount can truly compensate for enabling such abuse. Lena felt Simone squeeze her arm. The money didn't matter. Justice did. "One more item," Chen interjected. "Since the initial arrests, 15 more survivors have come forward. We expect additional charges." A young man in the back stood up. Then another. Soon, half a dozen people were standing, all former students, all carrying similar stories of abuse. Brian's shoulders slumped as deputies led him away. He'd built his empire on silence and fear. Now the truth was drowning him. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed. Lena noticed the mayor's resignation letter being passed around, the third official to step down this week. The Youth Empowerment Program's suspension had triggered a cascade of investigations across the state. "Ms. Battle!" A reporter thrust a microphone forward. "What happens to the kids now?" Lena faced the cameras calmly. "We help them heal. We create something better." Later that afternoon, Lena and Simone stood in an empty storefront on Natural Bridge Road. Sunlight streamed through dusty windows, illuminating the worn wooden floors. "It needs work," the realtor admitted, "but the price is right. Especially with your settlement money." Lena walked the perimeter slowly, measuring the space with her eyes. The main room was perfect for training. The smaller offices could become counseling spaces. The kitchen could serve community meals. "What do you think?" she asked Simone. Her niece was already sketching layout ideas. "I think it's perfect. Big enough for classes, close to public transit." She smiled. "And far away from any old ghosts." Lena pulled out her checkbook. "We'll take it." The realtor beamed. "Wonderful. I'll draw up the lease. What should I put for the business name?" Lena and Simone exchanged looks. They'd discussed this for weeks, wanting something that honored the past while building toward the future. "Battle House," Lena said firmly. "A place for strength, healing, and truth." As the realtor wrote, Lena walked to the windows. Outside, kids played basketball at the corner court. A mother pushed a stroller past local shops. This neighborhood deserved something good, something that built up instead of broke down. Simone joined her, lease papers in hand. "Ready to sign?" Lena took the pen, remembering that first karate class months ago. She'd walked in looking for personal healing, but found a greater purpose instead. Now she had the chance to create real change. "Ready," she said, and signed her name with steady hands. The fresh paint gleamed on the Battle House's walls, catching the morning light that streamed through tall windows. Lena stood in the doorway of the main training room, taking in the transformation. Gone were the dusty floors and cobwebs. Now, blue exercise mats covered the hardwood, and inspirational quotes from Black leaders lined the walls. A rack of fresh white GIs hung neatly in sizes for all ages. The sound of children's laughter echoed from the community room where breakfast was being served. It was their third week open, and already 40 students had enrolled in their free programs. "Miss Lena!" A small girl named Keisha ran up, her braids bouncing. "Look what I learned!" She demonstrated a perfect forward roll, popping up with a proud grin. "Beautiful form," Lena praised, remembering how scared Keisha had been on day one. Now she was first to arrive each morning. Deshaun emerged from his office, where he ran the counseling program. "Good turnout today," he noted, carrying a stack of permission slips. "That news piece really helped spread the word." Lena nodded. The local black newspaper had done a feature on their opening. highlighting how the Battle House aimed to heal the community's trauma through martial arts, therapy, and cultural education. The response had been overwhelming. "Parents keep asking about adult classes too," Deshaun added, "especially the mothers." "We'll get there," Lena assured him, "one step at a time." The main room began filling with students for the morning youth class. Simone stood at the front in her black G, hair pulled back neatly. She'd earned her assistant instructor certification last month. "Line up!" Simone called out confidently. The kids scrambled to their spots, adjusting their white belts. Lena watched from the side as Simone led them through warm-ups. Her niece moved with a grace that spoke of inner healing. The scared 16-year-old who'd once suffered in silence was gone. In her place stood a strong young woman helping others find their voice. "Deep breath in," Simone instructed. "Let it out slowly. Feel your feet connecting to the earth." The children followed her movements, little faces serious with concentration. Most came from tough situations: foster care, single-parent homes, poverty. But here, they found structure and support. Teresa Warren arrived with another box of donated equipment. Since Jalil's rescue, she'd become one of their strongest advocates. "The community center sent these over," she said. "They're switching to new gear." "Perfect timing," Lena replied. "We're starting a teen class next week." They watched Simone demonstrate a basic block. Her technique was precise but gentle. No harsh corrections, no shame, just patient guidance and encouragement. "Remember," Simone told the class, "martial arts isn't about hurting others. It's about protecting yourself and standing tall." A small boy raised his hand. "Like Ms. Battle did?" Simone smiled. "Yes, exactly. Sometimes being strong means speaking up when things are wrong." The story of Lena's fight against Brian Tolland had spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. To these kids, she was a hero who'd taken down a bully. But Lena knew the real victory wasn't in the takedown. It was in what rose from those ashes. The Battle House offered more than just martial arts. Their kitchen served healthy meals. Homework help was available after school. Weekly therapy sessions helped kids process trauma. And every Friday, local Black artists and leaders came to share their stories. "Okay, everyone, partner up," Simone called out. "We're practicing gentle wrist releases today." Lena watched the children pair off, showing each other respect with formal bows. No aggressive submissions here. No power trips disguised as discipline. Just kids learning to trust their own strength. The front door chimed softly. Lena turned to see a familiar thin figure standing hesitantly in the entrance. Jalil Warren pulled his hoodie closer, eyes taking in the scene before him. He looked better than the last time she'd seen him at the courthouse. The hollow fear in his face had softened. He'd gained some weight back. But his shoulders still carried tension, like he was ready to flee at any moment. Lena didn't approach him. She'd learned that some people needed space to feel safe. Instead, she gestured to the empty chairs along the back wall. An open invitation without pressure. Jalil moved quietly through the room, finding a seat where he could watch the class. His eyes followed Simone's movements intently as she guided students through the techniques. A little girl stumbled, and her partner helped her up with a smile. No one laughed. No one shamed her. Simone praised them both for showing kindness. Lena slipped into her office, where her crisp white G hung waiting. The cotton fabric felt different from the one she'd worn in that first class with Tolland. Lighter somehow, like it carried none of that old weight. She changed quickly, adjusting her black belt with practiced motions. Her fingers traced the embroidered words on her belt. The Battle House. Strength through justice. The logo, designed by a local Black artist, showed a rising sun breaking through chains. In the mirror, Lena studied her reflection. At 55, her body showed the marks of time and struggle. The slight bend in her fingers from years of typing reports, the faint scar on her neck from Talon's chokehold. But her eyes held a fire that hadn't dimmed. "Ready?" Simone asked from the doorway. Lena nodded. "Always." They walked together into the main room where the morning class waited. The children straightened instinctively, their earlier playfulness settling into focused attention. Lena saw pieces of herself in each of them, the quiet ones finding their voice, the angry ones learning to channel their pain, the scared ones discovering their power. "Caesar!" Lena called out, and everyone knelt in formal meditation position. The room grew still except for the soft whir of ceiling fans and distant traffic. She thought about her husband James, how proud he would be of this place. He'd always said she had more fight left in her. Even at his memorial bench dedication, when grief had nearly broken her, something inside had whispered, "Keep going." The journey from that first karate class to here felt both endless and instant. The threats, the isolation, the nights spent poring over documents until her eyes burned. The moment she'd discovered Jalil was alive. The day Brian Tolland was led away in handcuffs, his shoulder still crooked from their fight. But it wasn't the victories that mattered most. It was the healing that came after. The mothers who finally spoke up about their missing sons, the city officials who found their conscience, the community that rallied around truth. Lena looked at Jalil in the back, still watching. His mother had told her yesterday that he'd started talking again, little by little. Sometimes about what happened at the camp, sometimes about his dreams for the future. He'd asked about taking classes here, when he felt ready. "Remember to breathe," Lena instructed the class. "Feel the air fill your lungs. Let it carry away any doubt, any fear." She thought of all the times she'd wanted to give up. When her car burned in the driveway, when old friends turned their backs, when the threatening notes arrived daily. But giving up would have meant letting them win, letting the cycle of abuse continue. The Battle House represented everything Brian Tolland's program had perverted. Here, strength grew from respect, not fear. Discipline came through understanding, not force. And every child knew they mattered, regardless of their background or behavior. Lena stood, her joints creaking slightly. The students rose with her, arranging themselves in neat lines. Their white GIs glowed in the morning light, clean pages waiting to be filled with better stories. "Simone," Lena called. Her niece stepped forward to lead the bow-in ceremony they'd created together. It honored both martial arts tradition and their own cultural heritage. "We bow to honor those who fought before us," Simone began. "Those who fought before us," the class echoed. "We bow to honor our own strength within. Our own strength within. We bow to honor the community that holds us. The community that holds us." Lena felt tears prick her eyes, but they were different from the angry ones she'd shed during the investigation or the desperate ones after James died. These tears carried hope. She looked at her students, Keisha with her proud stance, Marcus finally making eye contact, Sarah's shoulders relaxed instead of hunched. They were learning more than just kicks and punches. They were learning how to stand up, speak out, and support each other. The morning sun painted squares of light across the blue mats. Outside, the neighborhood was waking up. Soon parents would arrive for their counseling sessions. The kitchen staff would start preparing lunch. Volunteer tutors would set up in the study room. This was what justice looked like. Not just punishment for the guilty, but healing for the hurt. Not just tearing down corrupt systems, but building new ones based on love and respect. Lena stepped to the front of the class, her footsteps sure and steady. She bowed deeply, honoring the space they'd created together. When she straightened, she smiled at her students. These beautiful, resilient children who dared to trust again. "Let's begin," she said, her voice strong and clear. "This time, we fight for each other." I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have hand-picked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.